are cultural species. Although some other species are capable of learning from others, humans are unique in the way that cultural learning accumulates over time. What do anthropologists mean by the term culture? Well, generally, culture refers to traditional, that is, passed down from generation to generation, ideas and values transmitted to members of a group by symbols such as language. These ideas and values, when serve as the basis for patterns of behavior observed in the group. But the question I want you guys to keep in mind is, do they have sex in other cultures the same way that we do in the United States? All right, Ethnocentrism tends to influence our understanding of human sexual behavior. Most of us have had experience with sexuality in one culture, which is the United States, for example. And we tend to view our sexual behavior as the only pattern in existence, and certainly as the only quote-unquote natural pattern. But anthropologists have discovered that there are wide variations in sexual behavior and attitudes from one culture to the next. Now, considering these variations should help us to put our own sexual behavior in perspective. According to an article by the Sexperts, cultures also tend to dictate the general beliefs a society has about sexual activity. Since there are such a vast array of experiences that people identify with a particular culture encounter, the differences in sexuality among cultures discussed in the article do not define all experiences within each culture. Let us take a look at variations in sexual techniques. Okay, kissing is one of the most common sexual techniques in our culture. It is also very common in most other societies. For example, among certain people in Canada, also the Trobriand Islands, kissing consists of sucking the lips and tongue of the partner, permitting saliva to flow from one mouth to the other. Many Americans might find such a practice somewhat repulsive, but other people find it sexually arousing. There are a few societies, though, in which kissing is unknown. Can you believe that? For example, when the Tonga of Africa first saw Europeans kissing, they laughed and said, "Look at them. They eat each other's saliva and dirt." The Hindu people of India tend to avoid kissing because they believe that it symbolically contaminates the act of coitus. But that does not mean that all Hindu people share those same beliefs. Sexual activity is comprised of a plethora of subjects, such as kissing, oral sex, masturbation, and foreplay. Culture intersects with sexual activity. Okay, let's move on to oral sex. So cunnilingus, which is mouth stimulation of the female genitals, is fairly common in our society, and it occurs in a few other societies as well. Some cultures are very accepting of oral sex, while others deem the act to be taboo or morally wrong. Oral sex is when one person provides oral stimulation to a partner's genitals. In much of the Western world, in industrialized parts of Asia, and in many island societies of the South Pacific, oral sex is quite common and may even be seen as a natural part of sexual arousal and foreplay. especially in the South Pacific. A particularly interesting variation is reported on the island of Panay. The man places a fish in the woman's vulva. Yes, I said that. Okay, hold on. The man places a fish in the woman's vulva and then gradually licks it out prior to coitus. Now, some of you may be wondering, is this fish cooked? Is it steamed? Is it raw? Technically, it's raw. Okay, now, conversely, some cultures in parts of Africa view oral sex to be highly unnatural, and many religions across the world view oral sex as sinful. Oral sex can be a very erotic form of foreplay that leads to sex, or it can be the main event that brings sexual pleasure, satisfaction, and possibly even orgasms. Gillespie, in her article in 2020, asked the question about oral sex. What is it and how to do it? Well, basically, she states, oral sex is when you stimulate your partner's genitals with your mouth, lips, or tongue, or they stimulate your genitals using these body parts. This might involve fellatio, which is sucking or licking the penis, cunnilingus, which is sucking or licking the vagina, vulva, or clitoris, or analingus, which is sucking or licking the anus. Now, oral sex is often thought of as foreplay, meaning it happens before penetration with a penis or sex toy. It might also occur after intercourse, or it could replace intercourse entirely. Everyone has their own preferences, and there are no rules provided both parties consent to the activity. Now, Gillespie also talks about oral sex has STI risks that all should know about. While oral sex can offer deep physical and emotional pleasure, it also has one of the same dangers as intercourse. Oral sex can spread sexually transmitted infections, which are the STIs, including chlamydia, gonorrhea, herpes, and HPV. Many people are surprised to learn how dangerous it can be to have oral sex when it comes to STIs. Dr. Sherry Ross, who is an OBGYN and women's health expert, states that whether you're the giver or receiver of oral sex, you can contract and or spread STIs. An HPV infection of the throat can even lead to throat cancer, the same way HPV can lead to cervical cancer. To protect yourself, make sure you and your partner are STI tested. If you're not sure about your partner's status, experts advise using condoms or a dental dam, which is a thin piece of latex that covers the vulva. Now, according to the National Library of Medicine, in an article, Differences in Oral Sexual Behaviors by Gender, Race, and Age, the research results stated that differences in oral sexual behavior were observed by gender, age cohort, and race. Most men, which is 85.4%, and women, 83.2%, had never performed oral sex, but men had more lifetime oral and vaginal sexual partners. 60 to 69-year-olds were less likely than 45 to 59-year-olds or even 30 to 44-year-olds to have performed oral sex. When analyzed, gender, age cohort, and race were significant predictors of oral sex behaviors. The major generalization that emerges from cross-cultural studies is that All societies regulate sexual behavior in some way, though the exact regulations vary greatly from one culture to the next.